All right, welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone here on AYV Television and Radio.
Indeed, coming up in the program this morning, Statistician General and Chief Census Officer, Statistics Sierra Leone, Andrew Bob Johnny will be speaking on the processes and preparations of the census, latest development, and his 2 years in office, among other things.
And the Ministry of Tourism and Cultural Affairs has launched this year's Ecotourism 2025 campaign in a bid to bring fresh chapter in Sierra Leone's tourism sector. We shall be discussing the importance of this.
As always, we do encourage you to be a part of the program simply by dropping us those comments, questions, and contributions via YV News Facebook page. But ensure the issues, your questions, comments, and contributions are tailored as to the issues that we discuss in the program this morning. And first off, in our first segment this morning.
On 9th of September 2024, His Excellency the President, Dr. Julius Maada Bio, proclaimed the conduct of a decennial population and housing census to be conducted in Sierra Leone. This followed the laying of the statutory instrument in Parliament for 21 days without objection. Since that time, Statistics Sierra Leone, the body charged with the responsibility to conduct the census, has been doing lots of things to ensure the census happens. This morning, to take us through the processes and preparations so far, together with the latest developments and his 2 years in office, we have the Statistician General of Sierra Leone, Andrew Bob Johnny, who also doubles as the Chief Census Officer. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
A very good morning.
Good morning.
So take us through the progress made on the proclamation of the President on the decennial census. What has statistics been able to accomplish according to the timeline?
Thank you very much in the first place for having me here. And as you've already started, the census starts with the law. It starts with the proclamation by His Excellency the President that a census shall be undertaken within the confines of this country. Once that is done, as you've rightly said, it's laid in Parliament. Then when it's matured and approved, then it becomes legal that a census shall be undertaken. And this has happened for all modern-day censuses, starting from 1963, right down to 1974, 85, 2015, and of course the one we'll be doing now in 2025. Ever since that proclamation, Stat SL management and of course the entire staff have been engaged in a lot of processes to ensure that we have a very successful census. It starts with the administrative machinery of the census. You have to ensure that the administrative setup is okay. That is the structures ranging from the advisory committee. You have a technical committee, publicity committee, the logistics committee. You have to set up the administrative machinery to ensure that the census is properly run and is very successful. We started with that by calling all stakeholders at Brookfield Hotel, starting first with the technical committee, which really comprise of members who really sit down, like watch the questionnaires and other technical issues. And that, of course, involves MDAs and other technical people out there working on the census. We have partners who also deal with statistics out there, like Focus 1000 and other groups. They were all invited, and that technical committee was inaugurated. Just about 3 or 4 days after that, we also called the advisory committee. In whatever you're doing for the census, you should have a policy wing. There should be people who will have to be there to be advocating for resources, for funds, and for also logistics to ensure that the census actually runs properly. That comprises, of course, the heads of the paramount chief. Then, of course, you have other people, the parastatals are going to be there as well, civil society, and other people as well. And also, you also have the supervisory ministry, which is the Ministry of Planning, are being represented in that advisory committee. Their role is to ensure that they solicit the funds we need. Census requires huge amounts of resources. Their role is to ensure that we have the necessary funds to ensure that we run the census properly. They are also there to ensure that whenever we have legal issues or things that we have to do, policy issues for the census, they are very much addressed. That was inaugurated, the advisory committee. Just after that, then we inaugurated the publicity committee. Census, as we all know, is everyone's business. We call it an all-man business. We have to ensure that every person right down there in the Fakai, in the village, knows about the census and its benefits. So we had to set up the publicity committee, of which AYV has been part of it, SLBC, Radio Democracy has been part, and all the media outlets, we are part of that committee to ensure that we bring them all on board, so we ensure that they help us in propagating the news about the census. People know about the census and the benefits, and for them to accept it. So come the day when we want to enumerate them, they know exactly what we are there for and the benefits. And also, shortly after that, we also went to the districts and inaugurated the district committees, and also called a whole wide range of stakeholders, paramount chiefs, civil society, students, you name it, market people, Okada riders, and all of that at district level. That was done simultaneously on the same day, when all and sundry were called and informed about the importance of the census, and were given an array of the timelines of the census and when it's expected to meet them for them to play their roles moving forward. So all these committees have been put in place to ensure that the census actually runs properly. Moving away from that, of course, we have other partners. Census is done in collaboration with other partners in the world. Remember, at the end of the day, when we have a data, it has to be accepted. It therefore has to be accredited. So therefore, we had to involve other stakeholders. United Nations Population Fund, Economic Commission for Africa, we have the Census Bureau. They were all part of the census process. These are the agencies that help us to run the census. Financial resources, technical backstopping, and a lot of other things are required in the census. And for it to be accredited, you have to bring these partners on board to ensure that they are part of it. So at the end of the day, when you read the results out there, it's accepted not only by the government and international partners here, but globally, the data can be used for interventions in the Sustainable Development Goals and the Medium-Term National Development Plan. So also, sometime in January this year, they were called over by UNFPA, courtesy UNFPA, that actually funded all of this. They were brought over where we had a meeting with them, with management and staff of StatSL, where we sat down to assess our preparedness for the census. That was where we discussed everything ranging from the instruments we have to prepare for the census, that's the questionnaire, the cartographic mapping we have to do, the pilot census we have to do, the main enumeration, the analysis, and other processes of the census. And also what it will involve, what it will take to come with technical input to support the census at every stage of the census. We had that assessment and the report was prepared. So we also had that technical backstopping that came. Running parallel with that at the same time also, we have to identify key technical people who will spearhead particular activities that are very key. For instance, the cartographic mapping has to be headed by a cartographic consultant who understands the terrain of the country and the technical inputs it needs to actually map the entire country in the world. Also, we also have a technical advisor. That's someone who has an international background and is normally recruited by external agents like the UNFPA. So we've had the technical expert who is now actually with us, that ensures that he oversees the entire administration of a census, guides us, we collaborate to ensure that we have international input in this thing moving forward. So we have done a lot of all this preparation moving forward. There are lots I probably could talk about later in the show as we move around.
Okay, so with all this said, what about the financial aspect of the census? Has Statistics Sierra Leone received the money required to continue the decennial census?
Absolutely, yes. We have a responsible government. We have a responsible president. We have a responsible cabinet. And of course, the people of this country. And His Excellency the President has committed huge amounts of resources to the running of the census and all other supports we do need.
What
and
percentage of the budget have you received so far?
We have received about $6.2 million so far.
What's the percentage of that?
We have committed $6.2 million for this year to be given for the census so we can use. We've had about 5% of that, because what is happening is we request per activity.
Okay, Johnny, sorry, let's break this down so we properly understand it.
Yes.
What's the overall budget required for the decennial census?
The overall budget of the census is $37 million, but in terms of Leone equivalent, it's about 911 billion leones.
What have you received currently?
Currently, we have received 12 million leones, which is 10 billion leones. And that is actually allocated.
So I mean $12 million?
No, leones. I'm talking about leones.
Okay.
12 billion leones.
I'm not really good with mathematics.
Yes, okay.
What's the percentage of that to the total budget?
It's about 2% because it's infinitesimal. As I said, it's small
ask this
for now.
because
Yes.
the last time I had an interview with Figo, the comms person from your institution, he said, I asked about the deadline, that if the money hasn't arrived with statistics, what the deadline that would affect the entire period. He said by the end of March 2025. If the money was not in the coffers of Statistics Sierra Leone, it would affect the rest of the timelines in putting together the census. So you have only about 12% of the money. How forthcoming is the reality of conducting a decennial census within the time frame?
We are very positive that we'll get all the money we need to run the census. And as I've spoken to you just now, what we do in consonance with the Ministry of Finance is to request per activity. The current activity we are about to undertake is a locality verification, which is just a very small fraction of the entire census activity that's going to be undertaken. So as I sit here, that money has been put into a bank account. They have designated a special account for the census, wherein every money is being deposited in that account at any time funds are ready from the revenue generating institution. So that one is there standby, making sure that even when we do not request, that standby account is there for money to be deposited. Then thereafter, we do request per activity. Then that cash is actually sent into our own personal account to run our census activities. So as I told you just now, we've been given an amount of money to do the locality verification. When we have actually just exhausted all of that, then we make another request. We are positive that even before we ask, there are going to be so much cash in the coffers of a special account that's been set, so that anytime we need money, we're not going to like run around for it. It's just there. We just request and it's being deposited in our Start SL account for us to use and make sure we expedite our activities moving forward.
Johnny, just as you've narrated,
Yes.
the essence of conducting census in any country can't be downplayed. The fact is it hinges on the development of every country. But is that the case for Sierra Leone? Well, in actual fact, most times when we've heard of census, the only time you will realize that, yes, indeed, census was conducted is when of course, they look forth for data, or perhaps the totality of Sierra Leone as to the amount of people. First of all, let's have a clarification. What was the last cumulated total of people in Sierra Leone as per the data of Statistics Sierra Leone?
It's 7.5 million people for the last census. That's 2021 midterm and population and housing census.
What sort of an impact has the outcome of this data had on the development of not just the country, but even the people in Sierra Leone?
Census has many uses. It has a lot of uses. The data we generated in 2021 has impacted development in this country in diverse ways. To start with, it deals with policy planning and intervention for both the government and, of course, international partners as well. When you conduct a census, you have a total count of the entire people in the country, and that is actually done by population characteristics. It's done by sex. It is done by, of course, other parameters that we do have. So when you have these demographic and socioeconomic indicators that you have, then you have an insight into how many people are there in Cambia, and not only that, how many of the aged, how many of the youths, how many of the infants are there. So when you have an idea of the socio-demographic characteristics, then the government is well informed about how many people are there in Cambia and what's the characteristics. Are they older people? Are they younger people? If they are younger people, then the government actually provides facilities for these younger people. We all know them, the schools, the recreation facilities and all of that. If you have an aging population, then it provides for wheelchair, hospitals and other things. So this data has been helping a lot in moving forward. And also remember, we did a population and housing census. So we also took cognizance of the housing units and its occupants in this country, where we actually took account of every bit of dwelling units, whether it's a two-story building, a three-story building, a one flat, and all of that, and even the huts and the fakai we do have. And you have this spread right across the country by these characteristics have actually classed. So when, for instance, you have an idea of, for instance, Kono, having just one flat or having just facades or having buildings that are not fit for habitation, then the government is well informed that the housing situation in Kono is not too good and there's need for improvement. And that goes for other parts of the country. So we also collected housing data moving forward. Number 3, the impact it's having. We have global initiatives, the Sustainable Development Goals and the Medium-Term National Development Plan. You need data to feed into these global platforms and international platforms and national platforms for us to measure the level of progress we've made in health, education, agriculture, and all of that. We need to measure how much progress we have made to actually advise government and its donor partners to intervene in what they could do in terms of providing ambulances, providing schools, and all of that. Boundary delimitation. Remember.
Again, I wanted to ask, was the outcome of the census results, was it a result of what led to the amalgamation of Kaine and that of, Falaba?
That was before. That was before, actually.
So I just wanted
exactly.
clarification.
Yes, exactly. That is it. So what census does is it provides population of every domain up to the lowest level of geography, call it the enumeration areas. Then above that, you have the section data. Remember, we have various layers in this country. Sure. You have a national, which is the country. Then you have a region. Then you have a district. Then you have the sections down there, the chiefdom and the sections. So what statistics does in terms of helping electoral processes is to have this information about the franchise, which is the voter population, and how they are by various geographic domains. So in terms of returning people to parliament or local councils now, it's about what's the quota. NEC will have to set the quota. Like, for instance, they will say you need about 44,000 people for this to form a constituency. So we do have the expertise, then we have the software called the GIS, which we manipulate now based on their samples they have actually set for both the local council and also the parliamentary constituencies. We do group these population units to form these electoral units called the parliamentary constituencies and the local council wards. So that we do that together with the spatial map and the attribute data that's been linked to the map itself to form this small geographic unit, called it a parliamentary unit or the local council unit. So that's the importance of census again. When you have a current population like the one we had in 2015, it did help by then the government to create these new districts. They were districted, and we had Kaine and Falaba, as you said. Census played a very big role in that, because by then we had new figures, and these figures were used to determine how they could delimit the districts in both Kaine and Falaba.
Johnny, when Samuel asked earlier about the population, you said 7.5. I'm a bit confused because online, when you check the population, it's 8.6 something. Please clarify. Yeah.
That's a projection. As at the census in 2021, it's about 7.5. But moving forward, we have population growth. We have a growth rate. We did that in 2021, and this is now 2025. So the projection, population grows at astronomical rate, you should know. So, and we have a very high birth rate in our country. So the population as at that time was 7.5. But when you do projection moving forward, as at now, it will definitely come to the figure you're talking about.
What's next on the calendar for the decennial census?
The decennial census will now happen in 2026 in December. And that's the time we go to every doorstep, to every one household, to collect information, socio-demographic information on what you do, what you eat, where you live, the schools your children attend, and lots of other indicators we want to collect to inform the government and its donor partners for their policy interventions and planning moving forward.
Yeah, you started by, I asked you what you've done earlier on since the president's pronouncement. You mentioned the things you've done. What I just asked a few seconds ago is, what's next on the calendar for the decennial census?
All right, great, okay. So we have done all of this. We've set the administrative machinery. The next thing that we have to embark on is actually advocacy for resource mobilization. We have to form a group by ourselves, Start SL, and international partners. Of course, UNFPA is spearheading this one, to ensure that we meet donors bilaterally to solicit funds and to tell them about, of course, they know very well what the importance of the census is, and we're to tell them the needs and what our funding gaps are. The funding gaps and, of course, the technical backstopping we need for the census. So we'll be listing them one by one, the management and the UNFPA, for instance, Irish Aid, the World Bank, and other donors, to make sure we solicit funds to really supplement what the government will be giving. Then apart from that, we also be ensuring that we undertake the cartographic field mapping. The cartographic field mapping is one that actually we employ lots of staff, field staff, to go all over the country to delineate this country into small areas called enumeration areas, where the census staff will be going to enumerate and administer the questionnaires we need to actually have the census done. This mapping will be taken for over a year moving forward. So we are planning for that. Hopefully, sometime in this May or June, we'll be undertaking this mapping when we have staff all over at district level undertaking the cartographic mapping. Basically, what we'll be doing is taking household counts at every dwelling unit for us to have a rough estimate of what the population is before we plan at it moving forward with the actual enumeration. Then, also, moving forward, we'll also be undertaking the pilot census. The pilot census we intend to do sometime in December this year. It's an activity that normally takes place 1 year before the actual census. That is where you test everything. You test the logistics, you test the equipment you'll be actually using, you test the questionnaire, you even test the weather, the terrain on which you'll be operating, and you test a lot of other things, including the field staff themselves. You have to test everything. Then after the pilot census, then of course we'll be going towards the main enumeration. The main enumeration is when we go and count everybody in this country, administering the questionnaires we have. In a nutshell, briefly, that's what I think are the next steps we have to complete.
You spoke about also trying to, mobilize resources. Why the need for that when you've also said here that we have a responsible government that has taken it upon themselves to make a commitment to fund this? Why mobilize for resources?
Remember, resources are not always provided by government 100%. You have to partner with other institutions to do this, if not for anything but accreditation. You have to ensure that they come in. And also, resources in the form of technical backstopping, where you provide technical expertise in the area of cartography, in the area of data science, in the area of communication. You need all of this to meet partners to see how they can actually chip in for use to be complemented so that you can do a better census. Remember, and the amount of money you are talking about is quite huge enough. That $7 million is quite a huge amount of money, and that requires other partners to really chip in to make sure we have that money ready. So that's why the advocacy has to start in earnest for us to make sure that this money is always there. So whenever we want to run activity, it's always there to be implemented.
We'll come to your 2 years in office in a bit. But Statistics Sierra Leone does have a sort of bad reputation to some of the people who worked in the previous census, who till date have not received their pay. What's the status of those people? Especially that for decennial census, you would be going back to some enumerators, correct?
Absolutely.
And there are those from the previous session who have not been paid.
Absolutely. I can tell you, as I sit here, that payment has been completed for almost everybody.
Almost.
Yes,
which
everybody.
means it's still not at 100%.
Yeah, but
even if there's one person remaining, it still puts it at...
That's infinitesimal. That's too small. Marginally is not too
as small as that one person might be.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
money is very important to that one person who has needs to attend to with that money.
Yeah, it's important for us to know, again, that not meeting commitments to pay staff is not just about money. There are a lot of other technicalities or other bureaucracy that's involved in it. Remember,
like
we paid
what?
people through their bank accounts at that time. For most of them, we are paid through their bank accounts, and perhaps for some of them through Orange Money. And the wrong account numbers at times we are given, or even the Orange Money they give at times we are problematic. So these are just like, technical or coordination issues that has nothing to do with money. But I can assure you, for a majority of these people that really needs to be paid, I can tell you have paid about 98 or 99%.
So what about the minority that also needs to be paid but have not been paid for service rendered?
Yeah, you mean for the service out of the enumerators, you mean?
I'm still on the enumerators, but
yes.
If there are more people, yes, please add them to the mix.
Yeah, that's why I'm assuring you here that if we have any of those sort of people I can tell you there are not even up to 10 of them.
Yeah, even I'll still insist on that point. Even if it's one person,
yeah, I know.
That money is very important to that one person.
It is.
So what's the plan for those people who still are being owed by Statistics Sierra Leone?
My management through the Directorate of Finance, the Internal Audit, Ministry of Administration, as they stand by ready to make these payments to ensure that we are done with them moving forward to the next census we are planning for. I can assure you of that.
And what's changing from that experience on the previous census to the decennial census now in addressing this problem, so we don't go back post the decennial census? We still have people calling the media, sending messages with complaints that Statistics Sierra Leone has not paid us.
We have moved on. And not only for this, I can tell you, when we concluded the midterm census, we had what we call the lessons learned. Not only for the payment of staff, but for other things, including technical payments, including coordination issues, including publicity and all of this. So what I've done especially is zooming in onto the payment itself. We are going to engage the mobile companies. Africell, Orange, we have already started, engaging them, trying to develop an MOU with them. So moving forward, that chaotic way in which we did things where staff have to come to the office or to the bank to queue up for them to be paid, this is not going to happen anymore. So we've learned a lot, and I think we have built on our experiences, ensuring that moving forward, we're not going to have the sort of problems we had in the past, to pay staff. And come the day we finish the census, I can assure you, everyone would have got his or her allowances on that day because of the structures we put in place.
Failure to receive allowances, as Fabian has just mentioned, I believe was one of the impacts, was what caused many Sierra Leoneans not to be counted in the last census. Mind you, for some of us, the localities where we lived, some of us were never counted. Even the houses where we live were never marked. What sort of an impact do you think SEM will have on the outcome of the census itself?
Yeah, when you have, in any census, let me make this very clear. I'm not going to give an excuse here. In every census, it's difficult, even in the Western world, to have 100% accuracy in terms of how you count everybody. But what I can say is, we always move, as I told you, we've had a lessons learned workshop. We have ensured that most of the issues that contributed, to people being left out, not being counted, have been actually captured, and we're making sure that almost everyone will be counted. The allowances you talked about, I've talked about how we put a machine in place to ensure that everyone will now be paid, so that he or she goes to the doorstep of people to actually count them. Also, public sensitization. You have to make sure that you bring everyone on board. People have to understand, the dynamics of the census, the benefits of them, so that when they show up at your doorstep, you accept them and you give them the requisite information that's been requested for us to move on with the census. Public sensitization is one of the key things. And if you could also remember, we had a lot of political interference the last time that actually took place. The opposition stepped in for one reason or the other because they thought, the census was not legal. And of course, then, they had, going around the campaigns and all of that. But let me tell you, this time around, it's going to be quite different. Now we have everybody on board. We had an advisory committee comprising of all political parties. They were all present there, and they have all given their signature, for us to carry on the census, which they will support fully and 100%.
That will have been my next question, because with the exception of us, the reasonable man, most times the politicians are averse to accepting the outcome of most of the census that has been conducted in Sierra Leone. But at some point in time, you did mention the impact of census generally on way of life, among many other things. But of recent in Sierra Leone, census have been conducted to ascertain poverty level, food insecurity, among many other things. But the situation continues to be rife. Is it that those responsible are not taking into cognizance this data that of course, comes out of the census that are being conducted by Stats Sierra Leone?
The responsibility of Statistics Sierra Leone is to collect credible data for development. Our responsibility stops at that point. What we do is we deliver this data to the government, the international community, NGOs, and all of those who want to assist this country in their interventions, building schools, hospitals, and whatever the case may be. What we have done is to successfully collect data, a wide range of data on demographic and socioeconomic activities. And we present this, and the final result we read out, and even give the data sets to all and sundry that are interested in development process. What happens after that is actually the responsibility of another agency or another institution.
There has been a lot of allegations that most times census are conducted to favor government in power. What will you say to SAME?
Statistics Sierra Leone, to start with, is a semi-autonomous body. We are there independent. We conduct our activities, our data collection, free of political interference or any other interference from other institutions or even societies out there. We stand there for everybody. We stand there for all political parties. We are there for every civil society organizations. We are there for all NGOs. We are there for everybody. We do not discriminate when we're going to collect data, or even when we analyze data in terms of what we provide to the government. We do not discriminate in it at all. So we are a non-political entity. We collect our data free and fair and independently as we provide to governments and other partners for development.
Have we ever had census data that is completely accurate?
We are 99% accurate in our census data we provide for all that we have done in modern day censuses. There is a small margin of error, which is very natural for anyone, any institution in this world, including even the Western democracies that do run the census, including the Census Bureau in Washington. They have a margin of error. Having 100% is, I can say, not natural.
Let's talk about your 2 years in office. It's for many of your colleagues, they would know perhaps more about you, but for some people, they're just getting to know you. 2 years at Statistics Sierra Leone, what's your history there?
I would like to take you beyond 2 years.
Okay.
I would like you to know that I've taken 30 years in that institution. And at management and at this level, first as Deputy Statistician General and of course Statistician General, I have been one of the most refined and fine civil servants that have been patiently waiting, that have gone through all the stages of a civil service in any institution you can find. Right down from a data collector, I told you of an enumerator who collects data. I started right down there, went through all the various stages of assistant statistician, the statistician, senior statisticians, principal statistician, director, deputy statistician general, and now I'm the statistician general. I'm very proud to be what I am today, and I'm extremely happy that I've contributed a lot to the development of this nation. Patiently waiting there has paid off, and I think I have given my bit to this country in every way. My ascendancy to the throne of the Statistician General has been quite amazing enough. I've got a lot of accolades, and I've contributed a lot to that institution and to this country in terms of data for development. I've helped a lot in coordinating very important data collections, ranging from the census we are talking about today, the multiple indicator cluster survey, the demographic health survey, Sierra Leone integrated household survey, and routine data collections, including the consumer price index, the gross domestic product, migration data, lots of other data collection. And under my regime, I'm fortunate to have a World Bank project called Harmonizing and Improving Statistics in West Africa, which has been funding most of our data collection activities. Remember, you should quite know that, in our country today, just like any other country, central government's funding statistical activities, which are quite very expensive. It's very difficult for them to undertake all the activities, also to sponsor everything they can do. But with the advent of the HISWA project, we have the World Bank. All we do just have to ask for is money for us to run our activities. I'm running 5 years now because I was the Deputy Statistician General, and this project started in 2020. Moving forward, our activities have been very successful, and we have contributed a lot to agencies, to NGOs, civil society, in terms of their data needs in this country, including the government, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Agriculture. We have provided a wide array of data that has actually helped a lot. And in actually making sure we measure how much progress we've made in the Sustainable Development Goals, the Medium-Term National Development Plan, we have done quite a lot under my leadership. And under my leadership, we have also ensured that we are getting a modern-day building, a four-story building, which is now being built at Tower Hill, God willing, by the end of this year, that building will be finished. That's happened under my leadership. And also under my leadership, the plan has already been developed to have all new districts offices in this country moving forward. And I've also built a lot of capacity in our staff at StatSL in terms of their data collection drives they want. Capacity building related to SITA, leading to CS Pro, leading to GIS, you name it, all the software packages. And I've also capacitated my staff in international travels and the experiences they get out in workshops as well. Under my leadership, I've got a lot of staff traveling out of this country, having exposure to understand and to mingle with other statistical actors out there in the sub-region. I mean, to make sure they are strong enough to make sure they deliver when they come back and add to the laurels of this country we have. So much of that I can tell you. And I'm extremely proud that His Excellency the President appointed me, and he made no mistake in doing that. And I'm sure myself and the management of StatSL, we are doing everything possible to make sure our responsibility for data collection in this country is always there at the peak, at Mount Kilimanjaro, or even whatever you can think of. And we continue moving forward. We've made a lot of progress. We'll continue making progress. And this will be one of the most epic census data collection we undertake, myself, the management and staff, that we actually add to everything you want to. Quite recently, I was appointed by United Nations Statistical Commission, the highest statistical body in this world, as a rapporteur. I was unanimously elected. That happened just about 2 or 3 weeks back when I was in the States, in New York. I was appointed, and I'm just one of the 5 bureau members. The rest are Asians, Americans, and others. So I represent the voice of Africa in the United Nations Statistical Commission. And I was fortunate to meet the Undersecretary for Social and Economic Affairs in the UN before I came up here. So I have put this country on the map. And I have also made sure that in terms of statistical data collection and the values we do have for statistics, it's actually out there and it's moving forward. StatSL is extraordinary. Sierra Leone, in terms of statistical data collection, is actually out there on the map now, as the Statistician General representing the country. And I have this role for 2025 and 2026 up to next year, when the other UN Statistical Commission meeting will be holding. So that's far, I can say this up to tomorrow if we sit here. The sort of, laurels have done, the sort of inputs, the inroads have made, so much of that has been done. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the management of staff for the huge, immense support they have been giving me. We work as a family. And when you work as a family, I think that's the best thing to do. The best person to head any institution is one that knows their problems, one that knows their intricacies, one that knows everything about the technical abilities of that institution, one that knows their shortcomings. When you are part of that family, and when you have spent that much time in that institution, you know the problems of their people, you know what to do, and you know how to succeed. And that's exactly what is happening. I can sit here and be proud that I'm loved by my staff. I can confidently say that, and I'm working with them. I'm proud of them. I thank President Bill a lot, and I thank my staff and management for where we are so far in my leadership.
Well, where we are so far in the program is about time to read out some of the messages from our Facebook viewers. Abdul Tijan Kagbo says, Census 2026, the time when the election fever will be heating up.
Santigi Bangura says, Hanold Simmons says, need for housing. Great private low-cost housing developers could identify the areas and provide in return for properties for rents or profits. Profits are good for development of a nation.
Swissman says, do we ever have a correct census in the country? Think about some villages without proper road network. How many vehicles your department have provided for your staff who have to go through hell to record the information of some of these people who don't have access to vehicles? And also, have you prepared the salary for your staff? Because most of the time we're having a report of incomplete payment that can also lead to demonstration by some staff. We know that right now you're talking like all is well to convince us as if your department is well prepared. But if we patiently wait for the outcome of your testimony, we will have a report of incomplete census and non-payment of salary. I will advise you to go and prepare yourself perfectly before coming to the media, because we don't want to have any complaint in the upcoming census, a complaint from the opposition and your staff.
Mostly says, I do understand the reason behind the census, but what has actually been the impact positively on the ordinary people? Is it that the politicians and the relevant people involved in carrying out this census are the ones that are actually benefiting, especially when it appears that we are in some extent dependent on donor partners?
Arnold Seaman says, this is also a good opportunity for private business owners to use the data to support their businesses, including the political parties.
Osman Kamal says, sir, can you throw light on terms decennial population and housing census, which was the term used to class the planned census with stakeholders in January this year? Also, you told the partners that government has pledged $37.5 million. Is it still the same?
Mosdi says, I was patiently waiting for the word donor partners. I know and appreciate the gentleman in the studio cannot provide answers to this question. However, why do we have to be dependent on donor partners every single time in every aspect of our national livelihood? When are we going to actually become independent in tackling our national problems?
So Mohamed Bakoro says, good morning, Africa Young Voices. I am still baffled and I need clarification on this. Since statisticians are typically working on projections which are sometimes accurate, why not depending on these sparse dictum and projections in order that national resources could be saved for other developmental areas instead of year in, year out national census? And again, what role does birth and death registration play in complementing statistics, data, and projections? Thank you.
Santigi Bangua says, congratulations, CEO, on your appointment as the new representative of Africa Statistics.
Arnold Seaman says, this is an excellent opportunity to understand the potential for developing the nations going forward. When you go good shopping for your family, you need a list of every need to help provide the goods or plan for the goods they want in the markets. Okay, this one is not clear.
Arnold Simans again says, this is vital for future projects to fund and provide support for the needy. And that would be my last week.
I think this one from Mystic Dozak says, good to hear from your studio guests. Now that you've made it clear that Statistics Sierra Leone is struggling with finances to undertake the census, many Sierra Leoneans are with the fervent belief that the midterm census is a major contributing factor which led to donor partners boycotting the process. What is your take? I think those are the messages to take for now.
Yes, your response to those messages?
Thank you so much. I mean, I want to thank all the viewers there and the listeners at least for following up on this program we're having. I hope I remember all the points that we are actually raised. I mean, but going back on how you really started and the questions, one had to do with, I mean, our provision of services like vehicles and other things to enumerators out there to collect data. For all our data collecting activities, we provide transport allowances to staff. And in certain cases, we provide vehicles and we have motorbikes. Remember, Start SL is a data collecting institution. So over the years, we've got vehicles, we've got motorcycles, we've got other means of transportation. But basically what we've been doing is to ensure that now that we have the advent of these Okadas all over the country, I mean, what we do is to provide transport allowances. So the staff actually go there and engage the services of these Okada services to ensure that we have the data we need, even from the most difficult areas we are talking about. Currently, we are planning to undertake the multiple indicator cluster survey. That's a survey that's actually as a baby of United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF. And for that, we are providing vehicles at district level for every team for them to go and get the requisite data for us, which we need for planning and development. And I don't think we've ever had any, I don't want to say categorically we've had a problem, but we don't have any significant problem in terms of, I mean, our enumerators or other field staff accessing, I mean, means of transportation out there, be it our own vehicles, our own area of transportation, or even the public transport they do have. So that much. The thing about incomplete payments, of course, this will come over and over and over. I give the response I always give. That, I mean, we learn and try to implement better ways of actually paying our staff allowances, even when they're out there in the field. With the advent of, I mean, with these mobile companies now, I mean, we are going to have an MOU with them where we can engage them in actually paying the staff out there through Orang money or AfriCell money, so they can get their money instant. So even when you're out there in the field, you can't be thinking of moving away from the village to come and give money to your families out there. All you have to do is to wire money to them for them to receive. And of course, the impact of Census I've talked about several times. I mean, so many uses of Census. I mentioned quite a lot of them. And for some of them I did not talk about. It's about, again, employment status. You know, when we go out in the field, we collect data related to people's employment. Are you employed? Are you not employed? Or if you're employed, what are you doing? I mean, these are just some of the benefits. And of course, again, to try to identify the disabled and other people that are physically challenged, the census is always there to have a sort of data for informed decision making. The private enterprise, I mean, for the past censuses, we haven't been actually engaging the private enterprises in terms of our needs to actually finance the census. By most of them, for instance, even this iron ore mining companies and other private sector, they do use our data a lot. So I think it's time enough that we try to put them in the net of part of our advocacy targets and actually meeting them for them to actually provide the resources we need to run our census. Decennial census, the word decennial actually means 10-year period. By statute and by law, what is enshrined in the Census Act is that this country shall conduct a census every 10 years. And we have been doing just that since 1963, except like when it happened in 1985, then we have a 19-year war, then we had a break, then we resumed in 2004, moving forward. So the senior census is just about having a 10-year period census. Other countries do have them for 5 years because they have the resources, they are rich enough to undertake that. But for us, we have to galvanize a lot of resources again before we undertake another census for 10 years. Yes, of course, then donor partners, you can't do without donor partners. I said it and I say it again. Even if the government wants to do everything about the census is participatory. It has to be collectively engaged into. You should have the buy-in of other donor partners and other technical expertise out of the country. Otherwise, this data you get eventually will not be used by them. The data has to be accredited. It's not only going to be used within the confines of Sierra Leone. It will be used by United Nations Statistical Commission, WHO, and other agencies out there. So we have to ensure that we bring these partners onwards. So talking about donor reliance all the time, donor reliance, yeah, to some extent is true, but for a census process and for it to be accredited, you have to bring them on board. So the census can be owned by everyone globally. That can be done. Projections. You have to project. In a situation where a census is pretty expensive, I've just told you about the $7.5 million for this entire census. It could be even more. So you can't afford to be doing census quite regularly. So what you have to do, when you have done one full-blown census, what you have to rely on to the next census is really about projections that you have to live with. I mean, having projections up to, like, for the next census we'll be having 35, then we have projections. So you have to rely on the census. The births and deaths is the responsibility of NCRA, and I can tell you they are all part of the technical committee we are talking about. They are part of the technical committee. They give all what they need, they want us to do about the census. So they are there, they contribute to the development of the instrument, the census instrument, and at the end of the day, we have an instrument we can rely on and trust to move along with the census. Boycotting the census. The last time, of course, we had an unfortunate incident. We had a World Bank that was sponsoring us. For one reason or the other, they opted out, and by the way, the government, we can call it Kumbra, was very magnanimous, was very kind enough to come in handy for us to continue the payment of the salaries of our animators to continue moving forward. These things do happen, not only in Sierra Leone, they happen everywhere. Yeah, so these are the responses I think I can give to what I had so far in terms of the questions that you have raised. Can I answer a call quick?
Not really, but thank you very much for responding to those messages. Would you like a few seconds to use this platform for public education to the people of Sierra Leone the need to participate in the census?
Yes, my voice to the people of Sierra Leone out there is we are conducting the census in December 2026. I am lending out my voice to all of them now to wholeheartedly accept the census. It is a legitimate one. It is one that satisfies the data needs of our country with the government and international partners for our development planning. We want good roads. We want good hospitals. We want schools. We want boreholes. We want lots of facilities out there. In terms of employment, the government needs to know how many people are employed and how many are not employed. And lots of other indicators ranging from agriculture, moving far, in terms of all the government's priorities, is key pillars. What is required is data. You need to plan. If we can't inform government about the data needs of this country and what is required for planning in this country, then we cannot succeed. We'll always be backward. So I want the people out there to embrace this census. Well, the processes are on. We'll be going at district level or even at town hall level to ensure that we meet people, sensitize them about the census, and tell them about the processes, what we do. The cartographic mapping, the pilot census, the enumeration, the dissemination, the evaluation, and all of that, we'll be meeting them out there. Consider census as the gateway to development and the gateway to alleviating you from poverty. Have it on board, trust it, lend all your efforts to it, and let's have a successful census in 2026 December.
Thank you very much for joining us in this conversation this morning, Andrew Bob Johnny, Statistician General. This